Alright, so before I go on vacation for a bit, we're going to have a Marvel Monday video. In this week, we're actually doing another Spider-Man. So we're doing the Amazing Spider-Man. So this comes in a 2-pack with the Black Cat, and as you can see, has a much larger and more dynamic base. We've got the Daily Bugle antenna falling. Got this little explosion, and what this actually does then is you have the, and basically like this, almost swinging around. So we're painting this in 2 pieces, the base and Spider-Man himself, simply because it is super hard to paint Spider-Man if he was connected to it. Plus, he's only connected by this and this little foot connector here that I'm using to connect onto this flight stand. So I've done gray primer, and we're going to go ahead and do an airbrush of contrast black to start, just to get the initial colors, because this actually isn't my model. I'm painting it for a friend. I got it for him for Christmas. Tells you how long I've been taking to paint it, and he requested it be done in the Spider-Man 3 style, so black with silver. Alright, so we got a good initial coat of black on, and the whole reason I did airbrush with it is it gives it kind of this nice even satin finish. So now we're going to go ahead and start doing the lining and some of the detail work. So in order to do this, I've decided to kind of play off of the cartoon style we've done, and I'm going to use ink, but I'm using a silver ink to do the lining. I think this will flow a little more interesting and give it, a more unique look. Plus, since it's ink, I won't have to worry about the solidity that acrylic paint can build up on the brush. So it should maintain its liquid effect. I'm also going to go ahead and use my 00 brush again, just so I have a nice fine point. So we're going to see how this looks, and just start with, similar to the other Spider-Man we did, we're going to start with a foot and just see how that boot does. Alright, so let's see. There we go. So yeah, that silver looks really good. Just the way I wanted it to come out. A little unsteady on some parts, but that's to be expected. To happen sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of the model with this, and we'll see how it looks. So as we can see, old Peter here, got a lot of silver going on. Bit messier than I'd like, but it's very small line details. And honestly, once it's further back, you can see it looks really good. The ink gives a really good glisten. So we're going to let that dry a little. And while it's doing that, we're going to work on the base a little bit. So we're starting with this explosion that we have here. And to that end, I'm taking my Blood Angels red contrast, and I'm going to do the bottom, then I'm going to go up a bit, do some yellow, and then I'm going to fill in the middle with orange to kind of blend it all. I'm going to try and do it really quickly to take advantage of some wet blending. So that's going to take a bit to dry because it's going to be very wet. And the whole thing's going to then be gone over with Graham White to do that smoke. And then once the smoke's done, I'll pick out the individual pieces. We got little bars here, you know, pieces of metal flying off, all of that. That'll be done last. So right now, that's just going to sit and dry a bit. Now, back to our favorite spider here. We're going to go ahead and do his eyes with some of this Apothecary White that I have. And this is a super duper white that I picked up for doing high contrast areas of white. And Spider-Man's eye, of course, should be very, very white. So let's see how this does. So, yeah, that white, perfect. It's very intense. I mean, that was over black, one coat, done. So it does the job. Now, the next stage, we're going to go ahead and take some of our black ink. And while we have gone and done the base black, we're going to darken in the shadows a bit, just to make sure they're as black as we can get. So again, similar to a sketch style, just going in with this black and hitting the shadowed points that you wouldn't normally see. So under the arms, under the legs, and also pick out kind of the definition of the muscles. Alright, so it's probably hard to see on camera, but darkening those recesses actually did add a little bit of shading in there. So, you know, you get a deeper black is the important thing. Alright, so the next part is we're going to go ahead and work on the web line here. And for that, we're going to go ahead and use a Wraithbone base. And then we'll use some contrast white over it. Alright, so we're going to let that dry, and then we'll be back. We're still waiting for this piece to dry as well, so we're just going to go ahead and give those a bit of time then, and we'll be back. Okay, so now that we've let everything dry, we're going to apply some Apothecary White on the webbing here, so that we can have that done while everything else dries. Alright, so while that dries, we're going to start in on our dry brushing on the explosion. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to start with a light gray, and then we're going to slowly add more and more white and shift the highlights around. So we'll have a lot of the explosion that we've done already covered up, but then we will go ahead and lighten the smoke as it goes forward. So I'm just going to take our dry brush and start working it, and then we'll just slowly, like I said, add the ivory in as we need. Alright, so as we can see, that subdues the explosion so that it looks like it's happening underneath all of the smoke quite nicely. So we'll let that set for a bit, and then eventually we'll go ahead and paint all of these little metallic pieces there, and gravel, or not gravel, granite that's come flying from the ground on up. So that'll be the two pieces of debris I focus on painting. Will be metal for the rebar and bars that are coming off of the antenna, and then concrete that I will paint to match how I do the ground so that they, look similar. Alright, so now that that's done, and actually I didn't need to clean my dry brush, because all I'm going to do now that I've reached this upper end of white is dry brush that onto the webbing. Okay, so pretty much done with Peter until we decide to do the metal for the dish, which we'll do that at the same time we do the metal on everything else. So we're going to change gears and move on to the antenna piece, which I'm going to paint in a deep red, which, if I can figure out where I put, there it is. So we're going to use my heavy red for this. Okay, so we've got the red on the antenna, as well as the broken pieces of it that are flying off the explosion. So next we're going to work on our metallic surfaces. So we're just going to take a gunmetal and we're going to pick out all of the metal pieces. So there'll be the satellite dish along with the connection point where it's mounted on the side here, and the grate there, along with the manhole cover, and then also the some of the flying shards of debris. Alright, so we got the metallic down. I also went ahead and applied it to the ends of any of the broken off sections of the antenna there. Next up is we're going to go ahead and do a darker gray for the asphalt as opposed to the lighter gray we've already established there. So we're going to go ahead and use our ash gray for now. Let's see how that looks in contrast. Yeah, not as dark as I might like it. So I'm going to add a touch of black just to darken it down a little. Of course, this doesn't want to open up very easily, so we'll just use my black gray. Like I said, just a small smidge of it. We'll just mix that all together. Want more of an asphalt gray than a concrete gray. And we'll be applying this also to the shards of concrete flying out of the rubble. A smidge darker. Okay, next I'm going to pick out the Daily Bugle symbol here in black before I apply some metallics over it. So not really black, I'm going to go with my dark gray just to kind of get the letters all ready to take a good metallic onto them. Alright, so while that dark gray dries, we're going to go ahead and apply some brown wash to our base just to get it dinged up a bit, especially around the metal. Okay, so for the rest of the lettering, we're going to go ahead now and do some dry brush brass onto it, just to give it a nice look. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and get Spidey mounted onto here. So, the mounting points are here, and then this piece here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score them up and get the paint off with my hobby knife. We want to make sure we get a good connection. We don't want paint to bind to paint, because then at the slightest pull, it will peel the paint right off. So just want to make sure that that's got a good connection area. And then I'm going to pop Spidey off here, and we're going to glue him on. Okay, so as we can see, I really like the pose. I mean, just the dynamic swing around like that. Just awesome looking. So I'm going to go ahead and actually paint this bit of sidewalk because I got too much red on there. So for that, I'm going to use my ash gray. So I'm just going to do that sidewalk up real quick. Alright, so I finished up that pavement, also hit the exploded rocks with a bit of the same light gray to give them a bit of contrast on there. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit the metal pieces with some Nuln oil to give them some shade as well. Alright, so there we have Amazing Spider-Man done up in the Spider-Man 3 colors. If this thing will ever focus. There we go. Nice. That silver's so vibrant. Daily Bugle sign looking good. And just the way that web line whips around. Gorgeous. Alright, so no Fallout Friday this week, but I will be back with one next week. No other videos next week, though, because I'll just be coming back from vacation. Let me know if you like the Marvel stuff, you want to see more of it. I'm going to be painting and playing it, so that's the only reason I'm really putting it up on the channel, is it gives me a impetus to actually paint things. But I will see you all once I'm back from vacation.